So basically today we will talk about that class and how we can connect sentences in English using that. So your homework text is going to be on the topic of bad and good parenting. So the examples here are from the text, and you will further discuss and work with this thematic text. That's the idea of the course. Okay, let's jump in. First things first, before we get on, before we land there, I want to talk about the basic structure of the sentence because I will use some terms and ideas that you will kind of have to know. So when we talk about sentence structure in English, we start from very basics. I have a separate webinar on the basic structure of the English sentence. So if you want to know more or listen to me talking about that in Russian, please go back to my YouTube channel later and watch this webinar. It's there on my YouTube channel. But the basic idea is that, so let's take this sentence here. I hate my cat, for example, right? So here you go, a very simple sentence. Looking at that, we can see three parts. The first one we call the subject. The subject is who does something, like I, or John, or the mother. So the active doer, the one who does, okay? That's the subject. So the doer, the one who does something in the sentence. So whenever I say that the subject goes first in the English sentence, that's what I mean. I mean the doer. I, John, the doctor, the mother, something or somebody that acts. So second is obviously the activity, the action, right? We call it the verb in English, like hate or jump. So it can be I hate or I jump, or the mother loves, or anything else, okay? So we have, in a standard kind of layout, it's the subject first, then the verb. It's important because these basics, they work on a more advanced level just as well. So I really want you to kind of pay attention here using this basic example, because later on it will help you a lot. So, of course, as well as we have the doer and the activity, we have something or somebody that gets this activity, that is the target of this activity, that is the object of this activity. So my cat here. So I produce hate, right? And the addressee, the one who gets this hate, is my cat. Okay? So that's the standard English sentence structure. Who, subject, does, verb, like hey, run, see, and object, my cat here. So I usually say who does what structure, or subject, verb, object structure. So hopefully you don't have a lot of questions here because we are moving on. So of course, when we talk about that, we need to learn to use that as the connector, because you don't want to speak in very short sentences like this one all the time. You want to make it longer, but you want to connect the internal parts of the sentence, right? So, what's the idea? So, for example, I have the sentence, he knew that he was messing up his kid. And when you do your homework, you will see sentences like that in your homework text. So, he knew that he was messing up his kid. So here, that connects he knew to the sentence he was messing up his kid. Those are two separate sentences, but we connect them together. Right, that's the idea at the very least. What's the problem here? The problem, it's not even the problem, but you need to pay attention to the word knew. So first kind of a use for that is when you have the activities such as know, remember, tell, say, and then what you see, what you tell, what you know, okay? So in this case, subject, right, like he, and then we have the verb, which is knew, right? So he knew. And then object is this entire that part. So if we go back, we'll see that object is my cat. So here, right? So the object is this entire that part. he who does something, right? The doer knew the activity, the verb, that he was messing up his kid, the object. The same thing goes if, for example, after knew or after tell or remember, I have one more object. Sometimes we have two objects. For example, I have the subject, the verb, then object one, and then that. It's also possible. So you also connect it in the same manner. So he told me, right, for example. So first you use me, or I told her, or for example, I asked her, and so on and so forth, right? So then you use that. So why do you need to know that? And what's the practice during the first week of the course? And for you guys who want to make this transition into B2, you need to practice using all these verbs such as tell, say, see, think, remember, and you need to practice using them, building up this longer sentences. So you need to remember that these verbs connect with that. So for example, I remember that I forgot my wallet in the restaurant, or I thought that the earth was flat, or for example, she told me that he was a good person, right? So we have all sorts of structures like that one here, and you need to practice using them. So one more aspect of that is that when you have this kind of a structure, so verb plus that, I tell somebody that, you can skip that. That's the best part. So for example, you can say, I really think that, we just learned that, think, the activity, we use that to connect to the second sentence. I really think that your son needs your approval, right? But you can also skip that. Just don't say it. I really think your son needs your approval. Here you go. You connected the sentences even without that. Of course, you need to know where you can skip that and where you can't. We will talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but that's the idea. So, such the case here, subject would be I really think, and then we don't have the object, we just have that, right? Because we don't have anybody who gets the action here, right? And then the son would be the object, like this entire that thing is going to be the object. And of course, I want you to kind of speak it through. I want you to say that for yourself. So what are you going to do right now? Take a minute to do that. So watching this webinar. So read the sentence like this one and read it both ways. Try to hear and feel this difference in sentence structure. So first you read with that, then you skip that, and it still sounds okay. So the survey showed that 20% of children aren't happy. Great. The survey showed 20% of children aren't happy. So now you try it for yourself, read the rest of the sentences, try to feel the structure, right? Try to skip that and feel the rhythm of the sentence just as well, okay? By the way, while you're doing that, I will check the chat. So if you have any questions, please make sure you use our chat to let me know about the questions you have, okay? Okay, perfect. Let's continue. So next thing you need to do, you need to just practice that. You need to build such structures yourself. So what's the idea of this exercise you're going to do right now? And please use the chat. Just type it in, send it to me so that I can give a look to what you came up with. So what you need to do right now in the chat, you need to use the structure such as many people say, right? By the way, for those ones who do that watching the webinar, also do that. So take a notebook, write down your examples, practice with me. So you have the beginning of the phrase, many people say, and what you need to practice is to connect the say to the second sentence by means of that. So many people say that I am very handsome. Many people say that I don't know, cats are cute. Many people say that pineapple pizza is terrible or something like that. So practice this. And of course, just as well as saying that, you can skip that. Many people say I'm very handsome. So now, keep in mind you have subject, verb, that, object, and take your time to practice that using all of the structures here. So choose a few, maybe 2-3 structures from here, and try to continue them. You can make a joke, or you can kind of share your honest opinion, but make sure that you use that, and then pronounce it both ways. So kind of say it out loud, first with that, then without that. So haters always think that I am a bad teacher. Haters always think I am a bad teacher. You need to practice this connection, okay? So do that right now. It doesn't matter if you're here now at my webinar, so use the chat to do that. I'll check it in 10 minutes, I guess. If you watch the recording, please do that too. So I'll just give you a little bit of time. So, like, for example, right, if I take something, I really hope that you are having fun, right, at my webinar. I really hope you're having fun, right? Children believe that dinosaurs are cool. Children believe dinosaurs are cool, right? So practice this kind of stuff. Aside from he says that he remembers that I told him that, we also have a different way of connecting two sentences, and one of them is called the subject complement. Anything complements like when you say something nice, but not in our case. In our case, it just means this kind of a structure. When you have the problem is, and you don't have any activity, right? And then you have the second sentence. The problem is that they deny all the students. The problem is that you don't listen to me. The good news is that I finished my class, or something like that. So it's very similar to the verb plus that we just had, but we, instead of verb, we have is, right? Or am, for example, if it's I, but it's rarely I'm. It's quite often are, is, was. The problem was that they denied all the students, for example, and then that class. And keep in mind that the second sentence has this traditional subject, verb, object structure. So we don't change anything. It's just subject, verb, object, and again, subject, verb, object. And even if you take 1-page-long English sentence, it's like in 90% of the cases, it's subject, verb, object many times, right? You just need to get a knack of connecting those. So, okay, that's the subject complement. What's important to know here, right? What's important to know here, that we don't have any skipping. We don't skip that. So you cannot say the problem is they deny all the students. I mean, it's okay-ish, but it's considered to be a little bit non-standard, according to Cambridge Dictionary at least. So for now, since we're trying to get the standards, try not to skip that in this kind of sentences. Aside from that, we also have the noun complement. Then you think it's a complement again, but not really. It's again the structure with that. But now you do that with the noun, with the object directly. Right? So he said something, it's the object. He, it's the subject, said, it's the verb. Something is the object again. So we connect the something with the next sentence by that. He said something that hurt his son's feelings. What is the common mistake? The common mistake is to say what here, for example. So quite often I hear my students saying, he said something what hurts. No, what, we don't use it for this kind of a connection. So stay with me. Week 2 of my transition course, we'll talk about what. But for now, we use that to connect this kind of sentences. And again, after the subject, here we have that as the subject. He said something, and something hurt his son's feelings. So something is the doer, hurts the activity, his son's feelings. It's something that gets this activity, right? So the same, I hate my cat. So I that hate, hurt my cat, his son's feelings. The same idea, right? So that's the noun complement. Again, make sure to let me know if you have any questions in the chat or in the comment section under this video if you watched the recorded version of this mini lecture. So, and again, I want you to be careful, and I don't want you to skip that here. Don't say he said something hurt his son's feeling, right? So that would be the most standard way of connecting it here. And finally, it's the last thing you need to know and practice and learn to identify in the text, which you will work with part of your homework. In the adjective complement, yeah, you guessed it right, it's not really the complement. Okay, so what's the idea? The idea is that we have the adjective sometimes, like I am good, I am tired, I am happy. Or here, parents are afraid. Adjective, it's like nice, good, beautiful. When we describe the quality, right, of the thing. Nice car. Nice is the adjective. Good person. Good. Good is the adjective. So here we can see parents are afraid. Afraid is the adjective. And of course, as always, we can connect it to that. Parents are afraid that they can traumatize their children. So the same idea, parents are afraid. So adjective is the part of the, it's not the verb, but it's the activity here, right? And again, object that, the same idea. And so in the second part, again, subject, verb, object, classic, the same idea. But here, unlike noun complements, let's say, or subject complement that we had before, you can skip that. And it's quite a common situation. You can easily say parents are afraid they can traumatize their children. Or, for example, I am happy you got a new car, as well as I'm happy that you got a new car. So, let's summarize it. So where can you skip and where you can't skip, right? So just to summarize what we talked about. So skip it if it's verb plus that, I think that, I remember that. You can skip it and you can keep it, up to you. So you don't have to. It's not that you must skip it. If you don't want to skip it, don't skip it. But native speakers do quite often. So adjective too. Then try not to skip if it's be plus that, the idea is that, the problem is that, my dream is that, or noun, his word that meant a lot for me, or something like that. So that's what I want you to practice in your homework. That's what I want you to kind of find analyzing the homework text, right? So guys who enroll in my course, you know what I'm talking about. You have the text on the platform, and after watching this webinar, make sure you go and you find all these kinds of sentences in this text, and you do the exercises where you need to practice building these kind of sentences. So this webinar is not the practice, it's the theory. So it doesn't make sense watching it until you go and you practice it for yourself, first doing it in the exercises, then come into discussion sessions, right? And my speaking practice sessions. Or if you don't have a teacher or a course, you can always implement it talking to your friends who speak English or going to an exchange club and practicing English. So, a little bit of practice right here now. Again, the same idea. You have the beginning of the phrase, and you need to understand what kind of a complement it is. Or it's verb plus that, noun plus that, adjective plus that, or whatever it is, right? So you must practice this one first. Then you need to identify if you can skip that or can't. So for example here, I'm sure that it's going to be a good year. It's adjective complement, sure. So I can skip that and I know that, so I pronounce it 2 times. I'm sure it's going to be a good year. So again, remember, verb or adjective, you can skip that. Noun or be, you cannot skip that. So now practice again. If you watch this webinar, make sure you write it down. Guys who are watching the webinar like live right now, make sure you use the chat. I will check it as soon as we are done with this theoretical part in just a couple of minutes. So, like, think, I have an opinion. Opinion. Is it the verb, adjective, noun, be that? Can I skip that? Can I not? So, or like, it's strange. So my problem is, so for example, my problem is that I don't have a lot of experience of having webinars in English, right? So I can say so, but it's the subject complement. So I cannot say my problem is I don't have a lot of experience, right? So my problem is that. I can't skip that because it's be here. Is be, right? My problem is be. So take a little bit of time, so practice different ones. So like, my best friend is afraid that I don't like him anymore. I don't know. But again, here I can skip that. My best friend is afraid I don't like him anymore. Perfectly correct way of connecting these two sentences. So your goal is to develop this kind of feeling. So it's also very important to learn to hear that. So that's why I want you to listen to this excerpt and hear that in the context. Okay, so hopefully it's gonna work for us. Let me take my headphones. Let's see. So hopefully you're gonna hear the sound.
You get to add in all the elements that were missing in the first place.
So here you need to hear that first the sound that. Second, you need to fill in the gap here. You get to add in in the first place. So let's listen again.
You get to add in all the elements that were missing in the first place.
All the elements that. So elements, it's noun, that, verb missing. So here you cannot skip that. And of course, she didn't skip that in this case, right? So it's important for you to pay attention to that. By the way, this video is also part of your future homework as the part of the transition course of the B1 to B2 course. So you will have to deal with this further. The ones who just watch my video, feel free to find this video on YouTube, on TED, and analyze it on your own. Try to hear all the examples. The same goes for our second video, this one. So try to hear this one again.
That it's inevitable that they're going to rebel and push us away.
So let's listen again. It's an important part here.
That it's inevitable that they're going to rebel and push us away.
And it's inevitable that they are going to rebel, right? And it's inevitable that. Inevitable, like you cannot avoid it, right? You cannot run away. It's inevitable. Inevitable, it's an adjective. So it's inevitable that they are going to rebel, right? Teenagers, parenting again. So that's why here she could skip that. She could say it's inevitable they are going to rebel, but it was her personal choice not to skip that here. And you need to understand that and develop the feeling of that and practice repeating after the speakers, copying their structure, right? So that's the main idea. That's it. For now, it's really important for you to do your homework because how it works. You first learn the theory with me at this webinar. Then you do your homework, your practice. So the ones who watch this webinar, I'm going to send you the text. The one who take this course, you have my full support in that. You have exercises. If you are not enrolled in my course, again, your homework practice is going to be analyzing this kind of videos or any kind of text you're working with, looking for this kind of structures. So then doing writing, you need to try to put it in writing. You need to try to write something using this that structure, that you have more time to analyze the structure, think about it and write it down. Again, who are taking, like folks who are taking my course, we're gonna have writing practice. And finally, of course, speaking. You cannot do that without moving on through all of those things. So we will stop here for those ones who watch the recorded version. That's it for today. So great job done. Make sure you go and do your homework. So